Calling all college students. Experience the deep and save on Kraken tickets with Student Rush. Join the list with your .edu email address, and the Kraken will text you a discounted ticket link almost every game day. Register by texting STUDENT to 56314, and we'll see you in the deep.
And welcome to another episode of Signals from the Deep, the official podcast of your Seattle Kraken, and I like to say the podcast tentacle of the Kraken Hockey Network. I am Piper Shaw, here with our wonderful producer, Grant Beery.
Glad to be in the same room with you this time.
I agree. It was nice to record on the road, and we will probably have to do that again in the future, but I do like to just be physically present. I think that
better eye
enhances
contact.
the vibe.
Yeah.
Speaking of enhancing the vibe, we have a treat for you this week because in the studio, we have not only Alison Lukan, hello, but also JT Brown.
Happy to be back.
Really? Your face isn't selling me, but
this is going to be a problematic episode.
I got to smile.
This is going to be a problem.
Is the homestand already getting to you?
No, it's just what happens when we get together.
This is perfect. I'm ready to go.
We're going off the rails quick.
Over under on JT and I debates is like 5.
It might be over. We'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Okay. Well, if you have any opportunities for debates, I'm sure that the people would love to see it, or love to hear it, rather. So we're going to start a little bit with some Kraken Hockey Network news.
Woo woo!
Since we have 3 representatives from the Kraken Hockey Network here. We have some big news as it relates to talent on our network.
We're getting some.
We're going to add some talent.
All right, I'm waiting.
So, as everyone knows, since we lost the former host, Nick Olchek of Signals from the Deep, we have been without an additional analyst, in addition to our great Allison, on our pre, post, and intermission segments. And that is going to be addressed because we can share that Brett Festerling will be joining our crew. A little bit on Brett first. So he began his major juniors career with the Tri-City Americans. So if we have any diehard Tri-Cities fans, you may recall him from back in the day. When he was playing there, he was traded to the Vancouver Giants, where he was eventually named captain. He played some games with the Winnipeg Jets and some games with the Anaheim Ducks. Also their AHL affiliate at the time, the Syracuse Crunch. JT, I know you played there, but you said you guys didn't cross paths or anything.
No, different affiliate when I ended up going to Syracuse with Tampa's American Hockey League team. So they rotated and then just kind of do a switch. Sometimes that does happen in the American Hockey League where they just switch the affiliations.
Yeah. So and that would have been probably like a 2-year gap or something too, I think we were looking at.
Yep, yeah. That's about right. Great
Well,
city though.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we'll have to dig into your time in Syracuse.
The
I know
Big
that you have
Orange.
many stories.
That's where you met Lexi.
That's another time.
Isn't that where you met Lexi?
Yeah,
See?
that is true.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Fortuitous.
Well, maybe you and Brett can connect on that later when he gets here. So currently he does some radio color analyst work for the Canucks. Allison, you are the only one of our crew here who has actually met Brett at this point. What are you excited about with his addition to the show?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to meet Brett. I think he's going to be a great addition. He's going to come join us for a select group of games. They're not going to be with us every game this season, but I think he's going to be great. I love that he played defense. We all know my super secret passion is understanding defense as best as we can. And what I'm really excited about is he's been recently in the game, right? And JT, that's one of the things I love about your analysis too, is you can take us inside the way the game is being played right now because you were just there. And so I think he's going to bring a really great, fresh perspective. And I also love that he's been covering Vancouver, right? So he knows this division. He knows the teams in it. I think it's going to be an awesome ad.
Oh, those are great points. And obviously, that's the one thing I try to lean on the most is that I've recently played, or you understand the game, or you understand certain players that are, still playing right now. So again, that's obviously a benefit. And Allison, you said that perfectly. I'm not going to lie.
Thank you,
good
JT.
points. We're not ready to argue yet.
Thank you.
So Brett, super excited to have you here, and fans were looking forward to you getting to know him as well. In additional Kraken Hockey Network talent update news, we've gotten some questions about this from people because our fearless leader, John Forslund, is of course also doing play-by-play duties for Amazon Prime Monday Night Hockey in Canada.
Sure.
There's a whole lot of words.
It's a
there.
great production.
It is an excellent production. So there's a handful of Monday night Kraken games that conflict with that. So there were some questions on what that might mean for the play-by-play position. But it's actually going to be the one and only Everett Fitzhugh filling in on the Kraken Hockey Network broadcast in John's absence. And then Mike Benton will fill in for Fitz on radio play-by-play. JT, you've worked with Fitz a little bit, just a couple times. You looking forward to that, getting back in the booth with him, or?
Yeah, I know it's always fun. Obviously, we're good friends off the ice as well. So when it comes to being out there and working, it's going to be fun. I just really hope that the Lions lose the day before, since it's going to be a Sunday and football, and I just don't want to be in the booth with him when he's all extra happy after a Lions win. So, if we could find a way to just make it so that the Lions lose and then we get to call an excellent game on the Monday, then that'll be 100% for me. But, again, obviously looking forward to it. It's a little bit different. Everybody has their own different cadences, different calls based on what John does versus how Everett calls a game as well. So a little bit of timing, a little bit of stuff to kind of work ourselves out with that. Thankfully, we have called a game before, so there is a little bit of the experience factor. But, no, it should be a fun time, and obviously looking forward to it.
Well, I also hope the Lions lose because just got to keep Fitz humble. I think that's important.
It's hard to do, all right? When his team is doing good, it is too much to handle sometimes. So I'm right there with you. And as a Vikings fan, I want the Detroit Lions to lose no matter what, but even more so because Everett is a diehard Lions fan. So, yeah, that would be – I'm not rooting for him to do bad, but I just don't want to see his teams do good. We saw what happened when – Michigan won the national championship. It took him. He's still not ready to come down from that one yet. So I don't want to see anything.
And we watched it with him. We were in Buffalo.
No, I refused to do that.
I know
There's
you
no
did, but
shot
Piper and I, we went out, and it was
a mistake.
We left. We left at halftime. Remember, because we were like, we've seen enough.
We've seen enough of this. We're gonna bow out gracefully before this gets out of hand.
I wasn't gonna do it. So.
Alison, do you have an NFL team that you root for?
When I was young, it was the Browns, but I've now sworn off the Browns. So I sit and watch football. My husband loves football still, so I sit and enjoy it with him.
My husband hates football. I cannot convince him to watch a football game. Yeah, it's actually become like a personality trait because he also works in sports broadcasting. Yes. He's an engineer, and so he works a lot of college football games, and he makes a point to tell everybody how much he hates football. Oh, wow. But he played hockey. He loves hockey, loves motocross. But anyway, so I have to beg him. I'm like, I don't know, I really want to watch this game, and he's like, okay, whatever.
Well, I married a woman from Seattle, so we have a Seahawks-Broncos household, and so it gets pretty contentious every year. So,
all right. So with all of that context being said, with Fitz filling in, you may recall that we had Fitz as my co-host on an earlier episode of Signals from the Deep, and we did actually talk about this, but at the time we weren't quite ready to share it yet, so I figured that we could share what Fitz said now about filling in and working alongside
Am I able
JT?
To change my response after I listen to this? One way or another? See, maybe I got to be a little nicer, or maybe I'll start chirping again, but I'm ready to hear.
All right.
So since I just used his signature catchphrase, it's typically "that's hockey, baby," but when we are in this house, it's "that's Kraken hockey, baby." There is a rumor floating around these parts that while the great John Forslund may miss just a handful of games because of his awesome opportunity to be calling games for Amazon Prime Hockey Night, Canada, Monday night. I don't know all of the exact branding terms, but that is all of the information at hand.
The Amazon Canadian Hockey Package.
Sure, which is Mondays. We have a handful of Monday night games that he may have to miss. And rumor has it you might be filling in on that TV seat.
Yes.
So I just wanted to kind of ask you how does your preparation vary and kind of the technical execution of when you're prepping to call a game for radio versus television?
So I think with radio, I mean, listen, you can't see anything, right? I as a radio guy, I have to give you every single piece of information that's out there, right? Where the puck is, what's happening, all the stats. I have to read it. I have to reiterate. And I think there is a lot more of that 90-10 preparation. You're not going to use 90% of the stuff that you prep for a game, but you never know, right? I spend probably 2 hours the night before a game just making sure I have all my notes ready to go and everything's all set for that next day. And then even in the morning after morning skate, I'll write a few things down, and I do all that work, and I probably use that much of it, right? So radio, I think, is a little bit more difficult in that regard. But for me, the issue and the challenge is going to be not speaking as much, because JT and I did a game a couple of years ago in Winnipeg, and that was a really cool experience. That was my first ever TV game that I'd done, and I got a lot of positive feedback, but I remember getting a couple of texts in the very beginning in the first period, like, hey, you can slow down a bit, you're not on radio. And I was
People
like,
can see.
People can
They
see,
can see a little.
what's going on. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's cool. So obviously you're terrified and you're so nervous because you don't want to screw it up, and a lot more eyes are on TV. A lot more people watch TV. Your reach is a little bit broader, I think. So that's going to be the biggest difference. But I think the way that I approach the game, if anyone's ever listened to a radio broadcast, there is no shortage of energy. There is no shortage of volume and passion and all of that. So I'm curious how that's going to translate to the television side, because I'm thinking, do I pull back a little bit, or am I still myself? Do I bring myself to TV? Is it a what you see is what you get, or do I try to pull back and tweak how I am? But then you're second guessing, well, if I want to do the best job that I can do, I want to be comfortable, and I'm comfortable being my loud, gregarious, passionate, outgoing self. So these are all things that I think about.
Well, there's a reason when I introduced you, I said the enthusiastic and epic presence. Obviously.
Yes, and that was very good. I'm going to put that on my business card. Thank you very much.
Well, and it helps that you and JT have such a lighthearted banter as well.
No, so he, from the second that he was hired, him and I, we've had this really amazing friendship and relationship. It's almost like we're brothers, and it's so cool.
It's almost like you're both little brothers.
Yeah.
Sorry, to be around you. It's like,
and you're not
you guys
wrong.
are both little brothers.
I'm an only child. I think JT is the middle of three, because I think he has an older sister and a younger brother. So I think he's the middle of three. I'm an only child, and like, when him and I are together, like, it's so fun just being around him and his energy, and giving him all the gears that I can, and finding little things to poke and prod him with, and
which is very easy to do.
Easy. Oh, it's my favorite thing.
As listeners of our last episode, where JT was the co-host, would know, him and Yanni were jawing at each other a little bit.
Oh yeah,
and
you riled him up a few times too.
Don't
Don't sell yourself
easy.
short.
Yeah,
It's too bad he's not here with Fitz,
I know.
because these two really go.
We got to do a tandem podcast one of these days. And I think too with JT, like, for him and I to be two black men in this position, it's very rare in our sport, in our league. So to share this opportunity with him just on a day-to-day basis, to see him in his element and learning this industry, learning this side of hockey, right? He spent so many years as a player. Now he's in year 4 as a broadcaster. So watching him grow and learn in an industry that you and I have been in for, 10 plus years, right? It's been so fun just to watch him grow, and again, give him all the smack talk on the way, because you got to keep him humble. That's one thing JT Brown is not short on, is confidence. So
That's true.
Respectfully, Brownie, we love you. Respectfully.
That's true. But there's also a certain level of confidence and gumption required to go out and do a lot of the things that he's done.
Yes.
I mean, you even think about some of his like activism and his work,
It's not easy.
No,
especially in
raising
the sport.
his fist during the national anthem
in Florida. Like, it's not easy. And like, we're not going to get into a larger geopolitical conversation here, but it's very, it takes a lot of resolve and it takes a lot of strength, especially in a sport where historically you've not seen a lot of quote unquote them, right? A lot of other, and for him to not shy away from I guess a certain responsibility is very, very cool to see and to experience, to be a part of.
That's one thing I love about our organization in general as well. Very, very purposeful about having some of those difficult conversations and, trying to be purposeful about representation at all levels as well.
And that's I think being intentional is so important. It's one thing it's one thing to say something, but to actually do it and to intend and to mean to do it is completely different. I mean, you can accidentally hire some folks and you can, oh yeah, that was totally what we meant to do. But from day one, we as an organization have laid out these goals and have laid out these pillars of how we want to be and how we want to
make hockey for everyone.
Make hockey for everyone and genuinely do that. So that's, again, what makes this place so special. And then when you have people like JT, you have people that we travel with and work with, yourself, Allison, Zach Peggins, Marcus Allen, De'Aaron
Jessica Campbell, who we will talk about
in a bit. We'll talk about her in a second, right? So when you have so many people who historically have felt this sport wasn't for them, making their own path in this game, it's awesome.
We also wanted to talk a little bit about some of the upcoming King 5 games. I know our broadcast crew, we've gotten such a great response from the launch of the Kraken Hockey Network, and just we're feeling really excited that a lot of people are getting the chance to tune in with better accessibility when the games are on King 5, in addition to Kong and all of the other Pacific Northwest affiliates, Amazon Prime obviously as well. So coming up, we have November 27th versus the Anaheim Ducks. So that's going to be the home game against the Ducks, not the away game against the Ducks, which for whatever reason we're playing them back-to-back, but not necessarily day-to-day like that. And then on the 29th, we're at San Jose Sharks, so that is also a King 5 game. And then December 6th at the New Jersey Devils. So Linda Cohn will be in the building, and yeah, we're excited for those ones. So with all of that being said, one of the reasons that I knew that I had to have JT back on the show this week is because the weekend before we are recording this podcast was the Kraken Super Skills Showcase. You may recall when JT was last on Signals from the Deep that we did a little bit of predictions. We talked about who we thought might prevail in these categories. Now, I want to say at the time we didn't know 100% for sure like what the skills that we were going to see were. We knew a couple of them, but so a little bit of a... So
you got to give me a little bit of a break.
Yes.
What you're saying.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Because you didn't give Bjorkstrand a break.
Well, we'll get into that. Hold on.
Okay, so I want to start, JT, with your predictions before we go into results. So can you remind us who you predicted would prevail?
Well, I know I said Montour for the hardest shot. Mm-hmm. I believe I said Tolvanen. Was it Tolvanen for accuracy shooting?
I believe so.
But he did not end up participating in that event, so that's an automatic loss for me. I think I said Maddie for the shootout was going to have to do something crazy, and then I guess relay, but we didn't know what the relay was going to be, so it's more of I would have had to pick all the players, but I think it was Chandler Stevenson as well as who I picked for that one. I did not do very good on my picks, though.
Well, true, but to be fair, like Montour I don't think he even competed in hardest shot.
No, he did. He dumped the puck in the corner. He dumped it in the corner.
The first time he missed.
Yep.
And the second time he was.
The second time.
Yeah, that is true.
It was a bad. He let me down on that one. I'm not gonna lie. I even said it in the arena. I was like, you gotta do this. I picked you to win, and then he dumped it in the corner, missed the net the whole way. Yeah.
I enjoyed your chirping on mic of the players during the competition because they didn't have mics in their hands. So even though they were responding, nobody could hear what they had to say back to you.
They couldn't defend themselves. It's okay. Well, I guess technically, in a way they could, because like I said, I went out and I picked Bjorkstrand because my original pick was not competing. And then McCann came over, kind of skated and was like, why didn't you pick me? And then he ends up going through. And at that time, he was winning the event. He had taken over, the time that Bjorkstrand had done too. So that was his kind of message to me, like, you should have picked me moment. So that would have been a response, but at least the fans maybe didn't catch that part. Wasn't the same as me being on the mic and chirping him.
But then you chirped Bjorkstrand, and he was part of the winning side.
I know, but he didn't win himself.
No, but he contributed to the hockey is a team game, JT.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but who won the event? That's
the
question.
team.
No.
Yes. It didn't go to the fastest individual.
Okay, so
Time
that
out.
was something, really quickly, that was something that I wasn't 100% clear on,
Yes.
was if the player, so for everyone listening, in case you missed the Super Skills Showcase, let's back it up.
Let's get in the weeds.
We
here.
had 2 people competing in accuracy shooting for Team Joey and 2 people competing in accuracy shooting for Team Gruby. For Team Gruby, it was Jared McCann and Shane Wright. For Team Joey, it was Oliver Bjorkstrand and Jordan Eberle. I was going into this under the impression that whoever individual had the fastest is who
that's
won.
what it is, right?
Apparently they combined the times
on.
of
Wait a
both
minute.
the players.
Team effort.
Okay.
No, we
Yes.
need,
Listen.
we
folks,
need to rewrite the rules then, okay? Because
you can't rewrite the rules.
why?
It's like a relay.
We
race.
made up the rules.
No. All of you, and I love you very much, but we were emailed the rules.
No,
On
I
Wednesday.
was not.
I'm looking at your name on the email right here.
There's another JT Brown in the company.
Here we go.
JT also didn't check the
just
notes for
stop.
this
Okay, all
podcast
right.
until now, so it's okay. We're riffing.
I'm just happy he's not blaming me for this.
No, again, Eberle won. All right, he had the lowest time. That's what I was picking. I wasn't picking based on which team was going to win. I was
Right.
picking which player was going to have the fastest time.
Right.
So even if they won the event as a team, my pick wasn't picking which team. I didn't pick Team Decord or Team Grubauer. I picked the player. So at the end of the day, if you want me to be right,
Okay,
I'll
hold
be
on.
right. But
Eberle had the fastest time.
yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
And guess what?
What?
I was wrong. You are correct. It was to the skater with the fastest time.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. I was going to
Yes.
say, I thought it was to the individual.
See how you can do that? JT, though, do you see how you can do that when you get something wrong? You can say,
No, you can't. You just pretend you didn't say it.
this is what happens and we love each other. This is just our fun banter, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Right, JT. This is our fun banter.
Look at the face.
Scared right now.
Oh, please.
All right, so yeah, Jordan Eberle crushed
So I was
the
right.
accuracy shooting.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good.
And Oliver did very well as well, but Jordan
Correct.
just crushed that.
In his defense, too, though, he shot first. So
That's
when
true.
you shoot first, obviously when you go at the end, I think Eberle was the last shooter as well, too, which there was a little bit of,
Shane Wright was
Shane
the
was the
last one.
fourth.
but last for his team, right?
I think, did Bjorkstrand
I think
go
it,
first?
it
Bjorkstrand
went
was
it went
first.
Oliver, then
Okay.
it went Jared, then
Then
it
it
went
went-
Jordan,
okay.
then it went Shane.
There was also, can you check the rules? Did they have to break the target?
They will aim to hit all 5 targets as fast as
so it
hit,
says just hit,
as
okay.
fast as possible.
Because there was a little controversy for that one because the top right,
Right.
corner did not break.
Correct.
He did hit the post and it kind of pushed it back and around, but that would.
Does that count though? If it hits the post
Yeah,
first?
I mean, they did
yeah,
count
they said
it.
they counted it. So.
all right.
Also, I mean, I think Jared was point something seconds away from Jordan's time. Like he was like right there, or maybe a second.
See,
he
I
was
should have
right
brought my
there
notes.
with Jordan. No, it's
I
okay.
screwed up.
I remember because also on top of it, the previous record was held by one Daniel Sprong.
Wow.
And I forget exactly what that number was, but both Jared and Jordan did it in like 1 or 2 seconds quicker than Sprong, his previous record. So
All right.
regardless, there we go. Going into hardest shot, Jamie Alexiak with a decisive win there. Both of his shots. So all the players got 2 chances, and both of his were the hardest by this radar gun, or however they measure it.
I think they were using the chip in the puck, actually.
Oh, cool.
I think.
Okay.
Which is good for
better.
accuracy.
That's better. Again, I thought that was a good competition. It also looked like Jamie wasn't even trying
It
his
was
hardest,
wild.
just based on obviously he was shooting. To shoot it that hard, you have to try. But when you take a look at everybody else that took like 2 or 3 hard strides into the puck to try to get a little extra more oomph out of it, he just kind of walked up to it and said, "All right, I'm going to hit it," and just beat everybody anyway. So next time I want to see if he can top the 104.
I think it.
I
Oh yeah,
sent it.
Geeky was
Geeky.
104.
I think if he would have, taken a couple of strides and really hammered into it, he might have been able to get it. But he already was winning.
Because he didn't even wind up on the second one.
He
was
already
crazy.
had the win. He didn't have to press for anything
Yeah.
beyond that. So I think he has an opportunity. Obviously, having his size and being able to use the stick flex to his advantage there.
I was surprised Montour, but he whiffed on the first one. I was surprised he didn't get more on it.
Didn't get a good the second one I think was maybe low 90s, high 80s somewhere.
I have
around
it back
there.
at my desk.
It was disappointing for me. Okay, I picked him to win.
Yeah, I feel like he probably could have done a lot better though, been more competitive.
Because he got 99 at the Player Media Tour.
That's why I picked him, because I saw it on the Instagram that he had shot. I was like, oh, 99, okay, so now you get a little bit here and we can try it, and he's going to try
He's got
to
a new
impress,
baby at
right?
home. Maybe he's a little tired.
Yeah. Well, on top of that as well, Eli Tolvanen was, I believe he was in the second place overall, because I think both of his shots were right below Jamie's for both of his, and then Jared had 100. One as well. But Tolvi, because I was standing there on the ice on that side, Tolvi told me that the reason that he didn't shoot the puck harder was because he didn't want to come do the interview with me. So yeah,
fair,
I was like,
fair.
He's like, yeah, I don't want to do interviews, so I just let Jamie win that one. I was like, oh, okay, Ellie, I'm sure that's why. He was kidding, obviously, but yeah, that was funny. So the obstacle course, that was one that we couldn't predict necessarily one way or the other because we didn't know exactly what that was going to be, but that was a decisive win as well for Team Joey. And that team was made up of Montour, Tolvanen, and Tanev, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah, they just pretty much ran right through that, and Team Gruby definitely struggled.
There was a little cheating going on in that one, too.
What?
I mean,
what are you talking? I mean, I'm being serious.
Share
What are you
your
talking about?
insight.
it was the I think it might have, was it Tanev? It was somebody shot the puck from all the way down and it was going wide of the net.
Oh,
and
that is true. That is
and
true.
I think it
That
was
was-
Monty just deflected it into the net so the next person
That
can
is
go
true.
versus. So you could have added another 5 seconds to the other score.
But Team Gruby did have some struggles with the shooting the puck in because Yanni had the glasses on, remember? So I don't think
prescription checked on
I
that.
think they could have walked down the ice and not because a couple of those
I'm
shooters
just saying.
had
I'm
shot.
just saying.
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying
Me
as
too.
well.
We're
We're
all-
all
we're all-
just saying. Uh-oh, jinx. Allison. Watch
It's
it.
the experience.
Yeah. I will say, even if we gave another 5 seconds
I
on top
agree.
of the Joey
You
time, they were
never
still going to
know,
win.
Okay, you never know what could have happened.
I would also like to point out that we should credit Jaden Schwartz and Ty Cartier, who were the passers
True.
for that team. And I think Jaden Schwartz is an excellent passer, so I think that was part of it.
Well, I hope so. They just did a little one-touch, little bump play.
JT's
They
like,
didn't
why
have
wasn't
to-
I a passer?
I could have been a passer in that drill.
I think they got to pick their passers as well for all of these. I
Yeah.
believe
They
gotta
needed
pick who
the
they
passing
wanted.
to be a little bit harder for the relay because they just went around by the tops of the circles, one touch, and then shot it down. I needed to like have an obstacle. It's got to go over something. They needed to one more layer to it.
If they did this to you when you were a player and they made you do all that, you would have been complaining.
Of course, I would have.
See? This is what I'm saying.
I like to complain about things that don't matter.
We know.
We are aware. All right, let's move to the next challenge here. That was the breakaway challenge. There was a lot of memorable moves here.
Yes.
Obviously, if you were there, Adam Larson took the cake on this one. He earned a significant amount of style points, which truly is what put Team Gruby in the race. But any other moves that you guys were tracking or that you were impressed by?
Shane Wright's was super fun. What, are we calling it the reverse Michigan? Someone's like called it the reverse Michigan.
I like that.
I like that, yeah.
But I thought that was fun, and I was talking to him after he came over to the bench. I was like, that was sick, and he was like, he was just smiling. You could tell he had fun with it.
Yeah.
You know, that one was good. And for me, since that would have been my answer, I'm going to have to change now so we don't have the same one. Burakovsky. He did not score.
Yeah.
But he was like going between his legs, picked it up a couple of times, batted, used the hand eye, and tried to bat the puck in.
That was fun.
It just missed by, not much. I mean, he got a good opportunity out of it, but just showing off a little of the hand eye coordination down in tight around the net. That was a good move. It didn't ultimately score, but had he scored, I think that one probably would have been the best move of the entire breakaway challenge.
Agree.
Yeah, had he scored. I loved Larson's though, because
Oh,
it was
yeah.
just hilarious. Like he
And
was
the little-
clearly not necessarily trying to show off, but like trying to get a laugh. And he got a laugh. And the puck went in.
This is true.
slowing it down. I don't even know how would you describe what that was?
Well, it's kind of almost like they was called like the first starting. One of them was like the NHL glitch when the controller dies. So he kind of just like
glitch.
when you stand there and he's going waiting, and then he started making a couple moves right when he got in tight. That's what I always equated to.
The NHL glitch.
Right.
Is that what we're gonna call the move?
Your
Well,
little
your
brother
controller
unplugs your
dies.
controller,
Yeah,
yeah.
and like your controller dies, and then they don't think. All right, and then you go around them.
Yeah, no, I love it. So Larson's Joey had some problems with this, but Larson's style points for that breakaway challenge is what really put Team Gruby in the running to be able to ultimately win this competition, which I don't know if everybody knew that style points were involved.
I'm checking right now. Oh, see, but
because that's what I said on when he scored. I said based on style points, he should get style points for that one. And then as we look up, boom, 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 the points start going up. I'm like, oh, all right, they're getting style points for it. So
who controlled the scoreboard?
Not me.
I don't know. Not me.
They heard, they
do you
heard
like a secret clicker in your pocket?
There is no mention of style points.
There should be.
Well, there isn't, though.
Well, clearly it was a factor because, and at first they gave Team Gruby 10 points.
Correct.
So Joey was up 15-0 going into that one. And then they gave Team Gruby 10 points for Larson's style points. And then Joey was
irate.
Yeah, hooting and hollering, to say the least, down on the ice. And then they knocked it down to 5, which felt more fair in my
I'm gonna give him the Air Bud defense. While there's no rule for style points, there's no rule against style points. So I think we're okay.
Well, but I feel that you should know.
When I had the microphone, we were talking about the event. I'm like, and I want to see some cool moves. I want some style points. And then boom.
You manifested.
I mentioned it.
This is
That's
like
all, they didn't listen to me.
Goaltender interference. You can't just make it up as you go along.
Sure can.
Okay, well, on that note, I can't argue with that.
We're never going to be invited back.
Sure can.
Ever.
You sure can.
What are you talking about? This is gold.
Then it went to 3-on-3.
Yes, it did.
3-on-3, which was also very entertaining considering that the Kraken had just won in 3-on-3 in overtime the night before. So I was betting on any team that Jared was on was going to prevail. But so Team Gruby won the 3-on-3. I don't really know exactly what they were doing during that. It seemed like they were playing shinny hockey with ends.
Well,
shinny.
I will say I questioned some of Joey Decord's deployment strategies. He went with a 3-forward trio to start the 3-on-3 and then went with a 1-forward 2D. That's who was on the ice when I believe the most goals were scored by Team Gruby. So I would question his deployment. And then there was also some controversy here because there were 2 periods played, but the goaltenders did not switch. So the skaters, they didn't know because Joey was upset about that too.
He needs to be on the planning committee for next year.
I was happy because that was the only thing I got right. I was 0 for 2 on my predictions going into that, and then when John asked me what was going to happen, I just said something's going to happen here.
Oh, great!
That's the analysis we crave, JT. Thank you.
I had to be broad, and the point is that something did happen.
Wow!
Somebody won. Somebody went out and did something. So I ended up getting one thing right throughout the entire skills competition, and that
Thank
was
you
the
for your
3-on-3.
insight as always, JT.
Honestly.
So speaking of your questioning of Joey's deployment as coach,
yes.
I had similar concerns as somebody who was standing on the bench next to Gruby, who I'm not really going to fault him for this, was signing autographs the entire time because we do know there was a little bit of a hiccup with some of the autograph signing stuff for some of the fans. So Gruby was prioritizing making sure that him and his team on the bench were signing as many autographs as they could. I did not see Gruby tell any one of those players to go out at any point. I think they were self-managing.
In fairness, I think Joey's team was too. So I teased, but I was writing this. I had many questions that I could have gone way in depth after that game.
Yeah, when I was not expecting, because I was representing Team Gruby when we were out there, and Alison was representing Team Joey. I was not expecting Team Gruby to pull the win out ultimately, so that's neither here nor there. But yeah, that was definitely his priority during that time. But I know that Borgen had a big goal. I recall, I believe Shane. Maddie,
again, I have it all back
perhaps.
at my desk. I failed.
Ultimately, ended up in a tie. So then we went to sudden death, which. Was that in the rules?
Bring them back up.
Yeah, what were the rules?
I think we're learning the rules are a little fast and loose.
3-on-3. Here.
JT, apparently.
Okay. Teams will play 2 4-minute periods. The goalies will change sides at the end of the period.
Ooh.
The team with the most goals wins 10 points. If we have a tie at the end of regulation, each team will get 5 points. But because the entire competition was then tied, they had to go to the shootout.
Okay, well, I will also say that while we were standing there, Gruby was quite impressed with both of the e-bugs.
Yes.
Like, he was like, wow.
As was Joey. They were great.
And Coach Jessica Campbell was standing on my other side, and she was like, well, good to know that we have good e-bugs. And I was like, yeah.
Well, unless they play for the other team, right?
Well,
That's true.
That is true.
Good point. Very good point.
JT looking so smug with that on his face. But ultimately, it was Larson who had
It was.
the shootout winner to win it for Team Gruby.
As one does.
Yeah. I asked Gruby, I was like, so Coach Bausma, you seeing this? Larson in the shoot-up lineup or what? Because that's what everybody wants. So
Love it.
yeah. Any other highlights for you guys from that day? Like, just it was such a fun activity. Anything else that you guys enjoyed out of that day in particular?
Well, I like that we got to wear our sparkly jackets. I do.
Yeah.
And I do think the guys were in a great mood, and I thought it was really fun for fans to see the players and see them just kind of hanging out, how they chirp each other, how they interact when they're just hanging. I think they were having fun too. They didn't feel like they were forced to be there. And so I just thought the energy was good. The vibes were good. It was a good afternoon.
Yeah, I just think you look at the fans and how many people showed up and how successful of an event it was. And just like you said, to be able to see the players maybe in a little bit different light. If you have ever gone to, an actual game, it's a lot more serious, especially when you're talking about on the bench. You don't get to see them really interact, or even at practice. Maybe a little bit more after a practice is done, you can kind of see, the guys goofing around a little bit. But, to get an entire event and see guys going back and forth is something that, the fans don't get to see every day. And to be able to do that for a large group of people was pretty cool.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, Gruby's sweater, like that really fancy sweater he was
Fair
wearing, looked
Isle sweater?
real sharp. I think that was the highlight for me. If we want to talk about style points,
Okay, well, noted. I don't think that one earned him any style points, but
Okay,
yes.
we'll get the rules ironed out for the next time, and we'll make sure that
We've
style
learned.
points are
Yes.
added in.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that
sharpest dresser.
hey,
I
coach
have
has
a
got to
couple-
come dressed to impress. Okay,
Best dog. Cheddar was there.
I was going to say, I have a couple of other highlights. Definitely getting to see Cheddar briefly. I asked Jared, I was like, where is Cheddar? He's like, he's here in the locker room. I was like, why is he in the locker room? People can't see him in the locker room. But it was a
Correct.
little loud for him. Cheddar was a bit of a loud environment
I
for
understand.
Cheddar. Very busy, many people, a lot of stimulation. But Yanni Gord's daughter
Emma,
on the bench with us the whole time.
the best.
So cute. And when Team Gruby ultimately won, they gave her the trophy to present to Coach
nice.
Gruby, and it was so cute. And it was also just so cute seeing, because she was out there like the whole time. Every time Yanni went out to go do anything, he's looking at her like the whole time and pointing at her, and it was just very sweet. And she was looking for she had a bunch of friendship bracelets, and she dropped one at one point, and Yanni's like, Piper, do you see that friendship bracelet? While he's like in between like doing activities, we're trying to find the bracelets, and we couldn't find them. I hope she found them eventually, but just getting to see like the players also with their families
Yes.
and like their significant others and their kids. I think
Yeah.
that's so cute. Little Otto Bjorkstrand was
So
out there for a
cute.
little bit. So I
White
think
blonde hair.
very blonde hair. Yeah.
Wild. It's so cute. No, I talked with Yanni a little bit about being a dad to two girls last year when we did Uncharted, and I just think the way he approaches building those two little ones into full-grown humans someday is just amazing. I have so much respect for how he parents.
Yeah.
And the other guys too. I just haven't talked to them about it as much.
Right. Yeah. So that was very sweet. That was a highlight for me. So we're going to get into some actual Kraken hockey talk, perhaps.
Oh, yeah.
It was fun to just riff on whatever, but let's talk a little bit about the game. So we haven't had a podcast since the last road trip wrapped up, so we don't need to delve into every single thing with all of those games, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about your guys' takeaways from that trip in general. Obviously, some lessons to be learned. We've had a couple of home games now that have been good results-wise. But what do you kind of take away? What are your perspectives on what we saw on that trip?
I mean, I think when you look at the first game, obviously to be able to put up 8 is a pretty impressive number. And you go around and you go through that. Obviously, you'd like to be better off when it comes to scoring. It's tough to win in this league, especially on the road. It wasn't an easy schedule either, but I think when you look at the overall in the end results, it's more about how you got there than the actual results. And I think that's where, the team started, or they needed to come back home and kind of turn things around, because the last 4 games didn't quite feel the same. It didn't feel like they were generating enough or getting the same opportunities. If you're losing the game and, hey, you ran into a hot goalie, it does happen. There's games where you've dominated the play, but it just doesn't go your way. That really wasn't the feel for those games. It felt a lot of times where the other team maybe had the majority of the play or took the play to the Kraken. So for them to come back home after a trip like that, it was going to be about how they responded, right? And, we've gotten to see so far 2 of them, but at the end of the day, it was a tough road trip. Started great. Emotions were, obviously high on that one, and a fun win, but you can see how quickly it can turn in this league. If you're not ready, if you're not prepared on any given night, any team can come in and beat you. So I think it's all about just being ready, and obviously so far so good on the homestand.
Yeah, I think we saw, we've seen how this team wants and needs to play to win, and we see how when they don't, that it's a struggle. And I think, even though it's interesting how these last 2 games have started, really focusing on better on starts and focusing better on not giving up the first goal is, I think, there are some key lessons. You obviously can't control that, but it was good to see them rebound the way they did. And I think that was important for them to do, especially against, I know we're going to get into it, Vegas, but yeah, I mean, it just didn't go the way they wanted, and I think it showed them the parts of their game that must be on point for them to play the way they want to play.
Definitely, yeah. I think that's a great point. So let's talk about these 2 games at the time that we're recording that have happened on this homestand so far, starting with the Vegas game. That's a very good team over there, at top team in the Pacific Division, a team that the Kraken have struggled at large to play against. So slow start. Again, in that game, they give up too early, but they are able to battle back. Brandon Tanev, with 2 goals in that game. What have you guys seen from that player over these first 2 games?
Alison, you go first this time.
Well, thank you, JT.
Wow,
That's
so cordial.
So nice. So nice. No, I want to give full marks to Brandon Tanev, because those 2 goals against Vegas were huge. The team needed those desperately, and he took perfect advantage of opportunity that maximizes his ability to break with speed and to get those pucks in the net. But I think it's truly is a reflection of that line. I think that line of Yanni Gourde and Ty Cartier, and even, versus Columbus, you see how the 3 of them, my thing is always, I was talking about this on air last night, is it's not necessarily the play that makes the goal. It's the play that makes the play that makes the play. And I think that those 3 in particular, the way that they play together, the things that each of them can do, they're not just one note, makes them equally dangerous. And we know how much Yanni will make sure his line has chemistry and is talking through what they need to do. So I think kudos to Brandon Tanev for sure, but I really see that as the culmination of what that line is capable of.
Yeah, and just speaking on the line as well, I thought that even in the road trip and when the results weren't there, that line was one of the better lines, even though they had been losing the games or the points weren't there. So especially when they're on the 4th line and you end up getting that type of production, obviously it's great to see, from a teammate perspective, but also you get to see them be rewarded, right? They do a lot of the little things that, not everybody wants to do, whether it's, Tanev and Gourde out there on the penalty kill, Cartier is out there hitting everything that moves and getting into the corners, doing a lot of the little work and the battles that, maybe get missed a lot of the times or don't show up on the stat sheet. So when you're able to go out and have a game, and again, that first goal at the end of the first period for the Kraken for Brandon Tanev was huge. Obviously, I think the save right before that Joey made on a breakaway, obviously that's a different game if it's 3-0 versus 2-0, and then Tanev makes a defensive play, gets the goal off the breakaway. But now the lead's cut in half, right? Now you go into the locker room saying, hey, we're right there. We're only 1 shot behind versus, hey, it was a bad period and now you have nothing to show for it, right? At least they're like, we're close. And honestly, I wasn't that surprised that it was a slow start. I think that can happen, especially after a long road trip. I think it was like 12 days on the road for that one. And sometimes when you get home, you're back around your family, you're back in your own environment, and you can have that sort of relaxation feeling, and it's subconscious, right? No one's intentionally trying to have a slow period, but I can see where that happens, right? But obviously it's not a recipe for success to continue to be coming out slow in the first periods or not scoring in the first periods. I believe the number was, Alison, you can check me if I'm wrong.
I'm ready.
If not, I'm right anyways.
If I'm wrong, I'm right anyway.
Yeah, I believe
Write that down.
I believe it was 10 out of the 16 games they had not scored in the first period.
Hold Hold, please.
While we do it. So obviously you can't control whether obviously they're running to goalies, running to different stuff, but you don't want to end up continuously being down after the first. It's not a recipe that you can continue to do over the course of an 82 game schedule. To keep trying to play from behind or play from that position. And they've done it. They found a way, which I think speaks a lot to the team as well, right? To be able to regroup, to be able to go into the locker room and kind of, hey, let's forget about we didn't have a good period. I believe Yanni talked about it in the media about having, sometimes it's a amazing period and then sometimes it's
shift.
terrible. Yeah, and so obviously there are going to be the ups and downs throughout a game, and that does happen, but it's about how you bounce back. So again, doesn't mean you don't want to be going down or not scoring in the first period, but at the end of the day, I think it shows a lot of resolve from this team as well, that even though you are down in a really good team in Vegas and you've been able to make the comeback, and obviously the same thing, slow start versus Columbus as well, you're able to come back and then have a huge offensive explosion in the second period. It just speaks to them being able to turn the page and move on.
So first of all, you're correct.
Thank you.
6 games.
He just did a fist pump. Yep. Everyone, he just did a straight up fist pump.
There have been 6 games thus far this season where the Kraken have had a period 1 goal. But I have a quick question for you, and also because we outside of a team will talk about the fact it was a big deal in that's the first time the Kraken have beaten Vegas in Climate Pledge. They obviously won the Winter Classic, but that was their first true at home win over Vegas. We all can build up this narrative, right? They've never beaten this team. Does that matter?
Nope.
Okay.
Not even in the slightest.
Okay.
I don't even.
Good to know.
I can tell you, I don't think that was mentioned probably once. I don't know that, but I would be willing to bet that no one was worried about whether they've won against them in this
100%.
building at this time. I think you look at it from a standpoint too of every year's a new year.
Okay.
As much as you had success against a team last year or you didn't have success, it's a new year. It's the first time you're playing them in this building or playing them somewhere else. It all starts over. So I would put zero stock into it as a player.
I love that.
So going back to the conversation a little bit about the fourth line and how they've been clearly impactful in these last 2 games. I wonder, JT, from your perspective, if there's anything about the identity of the role of a fourth line and of that fourth line and that work ethic and how they have been modeling that. And that's how really this team says they need to be playing through all of their lines. Is there anything kind of that's motivating, you think, for the rest of the group when you see your fourth line going out like that and getting the job done?
Yeah, I think it's definitely motivating for the other lines. You watch how they play and watch what they do. And obviously, again, like you say, you're happy to see them get rewarded in those situations because they do a lot of the little things that not everybody wants to do. But I think
you would know.
Yeah. To have a successful fourth line, though, I think it all goes down to those 3 and them buying into whatever the coach has their role to be, right? And I think one of the things that stuck with me in my time playing and being on the fourth line was hey, we're not asking you to go out and score a bunch of goals. What we're asking you to do is go down, change the game, make the momentum shifts, not get scored on, go out there and play against their top lines and make it difficult on them. He's like, if you guys score, it's great. If you don't, just don't do the other thing. Don't be -3 in the game because, and have a bad game that way. That is where, and then when you buy into that, then the goals and everything else and points from your line and the offensive stuff kind of starts happening for you. But I think once you buy in and you're not in a spot where it's wow, I wish I had more playing time, or I could be on the penalty kill, but I'm not out there right now. So I think it's all about just buying in, and it looks like they all have. And obviously that's about the message and what the coaches are telling you and, making it clear on what your role is. There's nothing worse than going out on the ice and being confused about what is asked or what's needed of you, right? So to have that clear communication of what you need, and you see what they do because at the end of the day, they're doing it night in, night out. There's not much change from that line, especially even whether it's a win or whether it's a loss on how they're going to play. And that translates to whether you're at home, that translates to whether you're on the road. They play a simple game. They played North. They are all physical. Obviously, Cartier is, the leader in that department right now, but no one's afraid to go to the front of the net, not afraid to mix it up as well. And, I think all 3 of them have the ability to get under the other opponent's skin too.
Yeah.
So again, they have a lot of similarities, but I think they each bring their own uniqueness as well. So I think that's what kind of makes them work. But also at the same time, it's all about the buy-in and making sure that you understand what your role is. And when you understand that is when you can officially, play to your strengths and play to the best that you can as a line.
That's what I was going to say too. When you look at the individual kind of skill sets of those three and the temperaments and the attitudes of those three, I think it's just a very complimentary trio to the role of that line.
For sure.
You know,
and like we shared this on the post-game show. We always love when you watch that too. Is that line played just under 8 minutes versus Vegas. Mm-hmm. Not a single shot on goal against. Not a single unblocked shot attempt in those minutes.
In 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's all that they played, but they had such an impact in that game.
Yeah.
Oh, and then, I mean, it's all about making the most of your opportunities when you are out there. And again, you got to remember too, some of those times, especially when you look at Tanev and Gord, there's a lot of penalty kill minutes if you get out there too. So there's a little bit of time. So how much of that was actually 5-on-5?
No, that is all 5-on-5.
Oh, that was just 5-on-5. Yeah. See, but he didn't tell me that was the 5-on-5.
I said
numbers.
when those three players were together on the ice.
I didn't hear 3. My bad.
It's okay.
Okay, all right.
He said my bad.
My bad.
Good job.
So
that's about as close
baby
to an
steps.
apology
I
as
know.
you're
I
going to
know.
get.
Trust me. I'm going to clip this and replay it.
So I have a question kind of on this. You talk about fourth liners that play their game and they're just trying to do what they do. But then a coach will come in, and whether it be because of injury or just want to shake things up, what adjustment does that player have to make, or what is a coach looking for from that player when they're moved up to third line, second line, whatever?
I think you just try not to do too much. I think you still want to play what's made you successful, right? Mm-hmm. And whether you're on the first line, second line, third line, I think if you're a guy that goes out and creates energy, you want to go do that. Obviously, I think when you're obviously playing with maybe a little higher players, when you're on that first, if you get up to the first line, you're going to need to have a little more patience, play with the puck a little bit more. But at the same time, I think that you still want to bring that physical edge. You want to try to change the game. You can get in and disrupt the forecheck and then get it to the skilled players, right? And let them do what they need to do. Go to the net front, battle there so that, they don't have to do it. So I think not a lot should change. I think a little bit maybe in your mentality-wise, maybe it's, hey, I should hold on to this puck a little bit longer instead of just chipping it in. Let's look for a play first versus, obviously you're playing on the fourth line and all three of us know that we're just going to go north. We're going to push the puck, and that kind of helps your reads on what everybody's going to do. But I think it shouldn't change too much. Obviously, it's going to be a little different playing with a different line, and you have to get to your adjustment and watch how they play. But I wouldn't try to change too much.
Well, and I think, too, what is important about the way this team is approaching that line, and I see this as a sign of respect, is that Dan will contradict you if you call them the fourth line. He says,
last night,
I was going to say, and Will Borgens did it, too. And I think that
he was like, I don't think we have a fourth line.
Correct.
Oh.
And for that just to be an immediate reaction from a player publicly, I think is a very big statement about what that line. There are 4 lines. You know what I'm saying, JT. Don't.
Well, they have to have a fourth line because there are 4.
You are sitting there ticking off with your fingers 1, 2, 3, 4. But you know exactly what I am saying.
You know exactly what Will Borgen is saying.
You know exactly what Dan Bilesma is saying.
I didn't say anything. All right, that's all I'm saying.
You just pantomimed it.
Body language matters.
He's trying to get away with it because this is an audio format.
Nobody knows what my body language is right now.
You're not. This is not a safe space, JT. This is not a safe space.
You know exactly the point I'm trying to make.
Continue.
I'm done now.
Okay.
All right. Any last thoughts on the fourth line before we move on to other Impact players?
I thought it was just a line.
Okay. All right.
Wow.
On the line of Yanni Gord, Brandon Tanev, and Ty Cartier.
You teed him up for that.
It was too easy. It was too easy.
All right.
The Yanni Gord line is what
Yanni
I call
Gord
it.
line.
Okay,
All right. So, going back to this Vegas game, let's just relocate ourselves to here again. Talk about this Vegas game. So, Oliver Bjorkstrand also scored in that game. He was scratched the game before against Colorado. Comes in, obviously, I would say, trying to make a statement, make a point, get back on the score sheet there. JT, to scratch a veteran player like Oliver, you can't speak for the coaching staff of that decision or anything, but just from a player perspective, what do you kind of make of that and Oliver's response?
I think it's definitely sends maybe a little bit of shockwaves, right? Especially when, he's a player that's done so much. He was an all-star for the team as well. Mm-hmm. So you go back and it's early, right? It's still, I think you'd be wrong. You wouldn't be wrong to say that he's had maybe a slower start than what you would have expected. So numbers wise, there is a reason, right? And then you look at how they're playing, and that's a personal, how you're watching the game, how you see him And at the end of the day, I mean, I think he was very well responded to it. And it doesn't mean that that's always going to be the case. I know even myself, I've been scratched plenty of times in my career and didn't always handle it the best. And I think you learn as it kind of goes along, and it's all about how do you rebound, how do you bounce back from that. And, I thought he played well, but I do think, when you look at it from a team perspective, when a player like that can be sat, anybody can be sat.
Right.
From that perspective. And, that's good on the coaching staff. You want to hold everybody accountable and make sure that, the team is playing the way you want them to play. And again, just said it earlier about the losses that had gone before that. It's not always about the loss. It's about how you got to that loss. How did the team play within there? Yes, at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to be left on the stat sheet is the final score. And it can be 2-1, 2-0, but you just didn't play your game. But it looks better when it's like, it was just 2-1 loss. It was a close game. Well, maybe it wasn't a close game.
Right.
And so I think it kind of just goes to how you're playing. And, the message is to get back to how you're going to play. How do we want, Oliver Bjorkstrand to play? And again, I think it's fair to say there's probably 3 or 4 other guys that could have been scratched in the same, in the same
breath. And Ty Cartier was scratched as well.
Yes.
Correct. And to bring in, and even, calling up Winterton as well, getting some of the young players in and showing some of the guys, hey, guess what? There's some young guys that are wanting to play. They're ready to be in the National Hockey League as well. You got John Hayden got into the lineup too. That was, in the spot for Cartier as well. So I think when you do things like that, it does send a little bit of a message to everybody that, hey, this is, nobody's, I guess, safe is probably the word, but also at the same time, it's trying to get the team back onto the right path. And clearly, when you look at, obviously it didn't work in the Colorado game, but you maybe lit a fire underneath Ollie, and he was able to go out in the Vegas game. I thought he looked good. I thought he was playing, strong, obviously finishing checks, going to the front of the net. That's how he got his goal and, played a strong game, which I predicted. I just want to say that.
Okay.
If we on the Jumbotron, I said, take a look at Oliver Bjorkstrand's game today. That was my player that I picked before the game. We can go back. We can find the tape. I don't have it now, but we will find it. And I said, Ollie is going to have a good game. He's going to bounce back, and look what happened.
Well, and you could say the same for Ty Cartier as well. We don't need to rehash the fourth line, the line of Yanni Gourde. We don't need to rehash that, but you could say the same as well, even though he wasn't in the goal column. He was obviously an impact player, as we discussed. So
I don't understand why it's so funny over here, Allison, okay?
All right, well, Allison, you also, Oliver very well from your shared time together in Columbus. So I also wanted, you've covered him quite a bit. You have that relationship with him. What did you think about how he responded to both, being scratched and then also on the ice when he came back?
Yeah, I think Ollie is a very thoughtful individual, a very intentional individual. I'm sure he didn't enjoy being scratched.
Yeah.
No one does. But I also was not surprised that he came back and had a good game. That is his game. His game is sneaky gritty. People talk about his skill, but we've talked for years about how he leads he's some of the league, not team leaders in takeaway plus minus, meaning he's taking away the puck more than he's giving it away. And I think he just said, I'm dialed in. I see what you're saying to me, and I'm going to up my counter bet, and it produced. And I think that's exactly what you want from him.
Yeah.
Did you go on the record and say that?
She just did?
No, I'm
Yeah.
saying before. She said that I thought, just saying.
I will tell you, sir, that on the post-game show after Vegas, I did say that I talked to Ollie before the Vegas game, and he told me that he was going to go out and score a goal that night, and guess what he did?
All right. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay, well, to put a bow on the Vegas game, we're going to put that one to bed. It did take OT for the Kraken to win that one, but Jared McCann, the overtime hero there.
Yes, he McCann.
Yes, he McCann. Of course he can McCann. Of course McCann can. All right. Let's go to the Columbus game now. Let's actually talk about that game. So similar to the Vegas game in the sense that, slow start. They're not getting to their game early in that one by any means. I think at one point the shot differential was like 16-1.
Mm-hmm.
I
that
believe.
Sounds right. Yep.
Yeah, obviously not the kind of start that you want, especially when what we heard from the guys all throughout the week was we need to have a good start. And then I was like, well, all right. But explosive second period offensively. I wondered, JT, from your perspective, you've been in that situation. We were talking a little bit yesterday, like that's probably not an X's and O's conversation that's happening in between periods there. What do you think? How would you explain what maybe was happening in that locker room? What's the conversation on the bench? What is that energy shift to be able to come out and have such a difference in the way that the team's playing and executing in that second period?
Yeah, I've been in plenty of games where it just isn't going your way. It's a tough period. However you want to call it, you just did not play. You got outworked in the first, and you kind of come back, and you're right. It's never really an X's and O's. It's never, hey, sometimes, maybe we were making a mistake here on this player, on this goal in particular, but for the most part, it's more along the lines of we need to just get back to work, right? We need to get back to outworking the other team, and then the rest will follow, right? To go back out and play your game. It rarely comes down to after, a period where we saw how lopsided it really was, that it's really an X's and O's. It ends up just coming down to getting yourself back refocused. And sometimes that can come from the coaches, right? The coaches can come in and they can
light a fire,
throw a water bottle. I don't know, whatever you want to do. But it also can be from the players too, right? Like there's been plenty of times where you have that type of period and, a player closes the door and says, hey, you know what, coaches, you stay over there. A captain, a leader, part of the leadership group says we have this because we are the ones who are going to be the ones that turn this around. You can say what you need to say, but at the end of the day, it's going to be in this room. So, there's plenty of different ways that you can, I guess, refocus and get yourself back onto the track. Because, again, it was more about playing their game. It wasn't that – again, you got to give Columbus credit. They came out hot. They played extremely fast. They pushed the puck up north. They shot the puck from everywhere, which made it harder for the Kraken to build into their game. But obviously it was more about the Kraken finding their game than the other way around, right? Because we saw what happened in the second period once the Kraken were able to establish their game, get pucks in behind their defense, make it hard on Columbus's defense to break out the puck, causing turnovers. And we just saw the chances just keep piling up for the Kraken. And it was literally a flip of the first period. So, again, I think it's a lot of times it does come from the coaches. It does come from a message, but, rarely does it say like, hey, we need an X's and O change to make this happen. It was more along the lines of we just weren't ready to go. We got to get the legs going, and it all starts with be a little bit better on our execution, getting out so we can use our legs to, help feed our game plan. But, yeah, either way, one way or another, I'm sure something was said by someone, whether it's a coach or a player, to kind of fire the guys back up.
Any other thoughts on the Columbus game? I feel like we really covered the fourth line impact. We've covered the response. The Yanni Gord line. I'm so sorry. I'm rolling my eyes. I am rolling my eyes.
I think I would just say, I think with everything else that has been happening, and even when we've been talking about not getting wins, I think that it is important to acknowledge, particularly with Grubauer out right now, that Joey Daccord has been, even when they were down 2-0 versus Columbus, Joey worked.
Yes.
And he has done a really nice job in net. And I think that it's important to acknowledge how key that has been, particularly these last two games for a team that's figuring out how to have a good start from the drop. And I think that this team is hopefully learning some lessons too, is that you can't continue to just wade into games. You're going to have to have some better starts here because they can play to a level to win these games, but they have to be able to establish that from the start when they're playing, in particular, like the Rangers are coming to town this weekend. So
sure are. They sure are. On that note, really quick, I also just wanted to touch on special teams. Do either of you, your assessments overall of where the team's special teams games are at as it comes? JT, you want to start?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think one of the main things you wait till around American Thanksgiving, right? So I think we're still at a point where one good game or one bad game can still drastically change the percentage. So until you get to a spot where one game really isn't affecting, I believe it was the game you have all of a sudden it drops 5% and a 3
No, 3 goals against. I thought 3 goals against.
No, I'm just saying the percent can drop drastically.
Correct.
But okay. I thought
correct.
you were saying 3%, but I was like, okay. My point still stands
Yeah,
one way or another, whatever the exact one is. So again, yes, is there stuff to work on? I thought the penalty kill has been very good, even to a spot. Besides that game, they were about 90. What was it, 90-something, 90.5 or 92, somewhere around.
That's long been a good.
It's been a very
strength
very good stretch. They're now in the the high mid 80s. So at the end of the day, I think that's a strength. You don't obviously want to rely on that. You don't want to tax your penalty kill to a spot where they are going to be giving up that many goals or game 3. You don't want to be given 5-6 opportunities a game where you're giving teams those opportunities. So they have done better at that. And, I think of that, and then I look at the power play, right? It's all about finding the timing, finding the momentum. It's not always about getting the goal. It's about building. You just don't want to have too many of those power plays where you can't enter the zone, or you're struggling to get the puck off the wall, or you end up getting 0 shots, and it almost feels like you've almost killed or dragged some of the momentum versus trying to build it. So, again, but I think when you look at the numbers, it's kind of hard still, because they could go out in the next game and score 3, and all of a sudden – you're looking at a completely different number. So for me to kind of look at that Thanksgiving mark, and that's when you can kind of give maybe a better representation, because, again, you're 1 or 2 really good games on the power play or really good games on the penalty kill, or vice versa, bad either way, that can completely change what those numbers actually say.
Yeah. The number I am watching that I'd like to see go down is the number of penalties they're taking.
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah.
It's up from last year, and then, that's okay. But I'd like to see that go down, because, to your point, JT, Colorado gets 3 power play goals, but that's because they had 5 opportunities on the power play. And for me, what I'm also really intrigued with, because people know special teams is like one of my other favorite things to nerd out about, is that they're using a different formation this year on the penalty kill. And so what I'm watching for, besides the numbers, like JT is saying, I'm not looking at that right now, but how are they adapting to that? How is it working? What opportunities does that give your opponent? How are they counterpunching against that? So that's been very interesting to me as well.
I do have a question for you. Is there any correlation right now between the wins and taking less penalties and the losses and taking more penalties? Because we did a different experiment, obviously, and we talked about just the goal scoring, right? And how this was obviously prior to this trip and on the road trip, and talking about how in the wins, you're scoring 8 goals, you're scoring 5, 6, you're scoring a ton. But in the games where you were losing, you weren't scoring that. You were scoring 2 goals per game.
And is it because you were killing penalties the entire time, or?
Well, yeah, it's hard to win when you have less than 2 goals in the National Hockey League, and even if you have a 2-game stretch, right? You go 8 goals in Montreal, you go 0 in the next one. Well, the average is 4. But in theory, you didn't give yourself an opportunity to win that second game when you had 0 versus actually scoring 4 and 4. So trying to find, the breakdown between, hey, when the wins, it's going really good. You're scoring a ton, probably more than you need to, right? Like, to win those games. But then obviously scoring has at times been a struggle, and just trying to find a balance throughout that. So wondering if, in the games where you win, are you taking less? And then same time, obviously when you give up 5 power play opportunities, you're giving a good team, a really good team with a good power play, that many chances, it can end up biting you.
Well, and that was one of the things that I was going to say earlier before we went to Allison before, was just that, like, there was a moment with this team where the conversation was about, like, discipline, which is that hasn't been like a theme overall in the past. And obviously, new season, everything is always in flux. The story's constantly evolving. But that was interesting when being undisciplined was like a real sore spot with the group. And I do feel like they've tightened that up, at least on this homestand so far. So hopefully that remains. But Allison, do you have an answer to JT's question?
I do have an answer. So on losses so far, they've averaged 3.2 penalty kills per game, and on wins, 3.1.
So it's a wash.
Yeah.
Okay. I just was wondering.
No, listen, we talk about this all the time. We ask questions, we investigate to learn. We've learned.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean, it was a good exercise.
All right. We're going to move into some league leads, if you will, unless we have any final thoughts on what we've seen from Kraken hockey lately.
I have one question.
Okay.
So we have a back-to-back coming up, Saturday, Sunday. Is there a different preparation? You talk about not coming into the game fast enough and maybe not, having your legs right away. Is there a different preparation when you are playing 2 days in a row?
Not for game 1.
Sure.
Obviously, that one you're still more than likely going to have your standard operating procedures for that. But obviously, on a game where you're playing on the second night of a back-to-back, you're going to look at maybe not getting on the ice in the morning and doing more of a recovery type whether it's stretching, whether it's getting in the cold tub, whether it's, getting massaged, and you got to figure out what works best for you to feel the best. Obviously you're playing 2 games in a quick amount of time. You have to let your muscles recover. A lot of that is obviously getting to sleep after the game, getting refueled, getting recovered. So I think a lot of the times on the second day, at least for me, in my experiences, a lot of it was more based on trying to just recover and make sure that you're feeling the best. Whereas, you come into that first game, you've had whether maybe I had practice the other day, you might have had a day off, you might have who knows what the day before entailed. But at the end of the day, you go into that feeling fresh. Obviously, you're going to be more tired in a second half scenario, so your focus is more just how do we recover, how do we do that, and that starts honestly the second you get off the ice. And whether that's a protein shake, whether getting your fluids in, it could be a light bike to kind of flush your legs out. So there's a lot of ways for you to do it, but the focus really kind of changes after that game, focusing on the second half of a game. And it's even worse when you have the second half of the game and it's an earlier game, right? Like they did that in the back-to-back on the road trip, right, where you had the game and then all of a sudden it's a 5 o'clock game in Boston. So you now have even less time to get yourself ready for the game. You're traveling afterwards too. So being at home makes things obviously different than being on the road and having to get on a plane and then fly, get to the hotel. So again, it's all about just trying to get the best recovery you can so that you can play to the best of your strengths in that second half or the second game.
There you go.
2 quick notes on the Kraken hockey updates, I suppose. In case you missed it, the Kraken did make a trade for one Daniel Sprong with the Vancouver Canucks. Ding dong, Daniel Sprong. Everett Fitzhugh, I'm sure, is very excited to make that call this season. He loves his Daniel Sprong goal calls. So future considerations is what the Canucks are receiving in return. At the time that we are recording this, he is not here, but he could be here any day. At the time you are listening to this, potentially he is here. So it is in flux. There was a little bit of an immigration hang up, not necessarily atypical. So Coach Bousman joked that he is walking from Vancouver, and that's why it's taking a while.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that point because I saw some people on social last night saying, well, Forslund said he's walking. I'm like, he did say that, but it was a joke.
No, yeah. I think I said that on
you
the,
said it,
on the game.
And then Forsland said it again, too. And
it
was
a joke.
It was a joke, folks.
This is how rumors get started.
Well, no, it was definitely a joke. So anyways, Ron Francis said that he's hoping that gives us a little bit of an offensive spark to the team, as well as maybe creates a little bit of internal competition as well. So any thoughts, you guys, on bringing Kraken legend back, Daniel Sprong?
Well, I mean, when Ron joined us on the pregame show, he did say, he's like, these players can count. There's now 13 forwards. And, that is definitely a big thing that he has thought about with bringing this player back. And I think that it's really, it's going to be interesting because part of where Daniel Sprong hasn't necessarily stuck with a lot of teams is you have to really know how to maximize his strengths and put him in a position to succeed that benefits your team. And because the Kraken have done that, it'll be interesting to see if they can recreate a little bit of that magic.
I saw JT counting on his fingers.
Yeah,
can you count, JT?
Yeah, I was making sure I could figure out 13.
Do you have enough fingers to get to 13?
He was reaching for his toes, yeah.
No, I mean, but in all honesty, you get a guy that can shoot the puck. I think that's his greatest strength, right? He does have speed. He can create and make things happen. But when the puck is on his stick and he's drifting it towards the net, there's not it's a good shot, right? And as far as you want to be as hard as you can with that shot, you want to be as accurate as you can with that shot. And, that's where it kind of gets exciting to think about, maybe he's going to get an opportunity. Maybe he gets it on the power play. Obviously, you don't know that yet. You don't know where he's going to slot. Can he play on your fourth line? He's done that. He can play up in your lineup as well with the skill set that he does have. But the threat of having a right-handed shot that can shoot the puck as hard as he does is something that, definitely could help and could benefit the power play. Because, that's his strongest asset, right? It's definitely the way he can shoot the puck. And I think you look at a guy like McCann and how he shoots, they have both have very hard shots, but have different shots, right? Like you want McCann going downhill and taking a snapshot, but when Sprong gets it, he can just absolutely take, when he gets a one-timer off, it's a completely different game. So it would have been fun to see him do the hardest shot as well.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
At the end of the day,
he had the record for accuracy shooting as well. So, hey.
The end of the day, it's all about combining both of those skills together. And when he does do that, it's not that long ago where he said, obviously with the Kraken, set his own personal record for goals, for points. I believe it was 46 points, right, for the season, and then had 17 goals in Detroit as well. So, again, you're getting a player that can put the puck in the back of the net. And Allison's looking up right now to
I was
going to
say, JT,
wrong.
I feel like you're abusing your privileges with Allison here, ready to back you up with whatever numbers you need.
This is our relationship.
Active fact checking. Is
Keeping it in check. I love it.
As soon as I start saying a number, I just see the computer and I see the typing, putting his name in, making sure I was correct.
But it was 46. But I do want to say,
I said 46, right?
Yeah, this is what I want. This is what I love about our friendship is that. Having played the game, we both have different, and I not obviously. We both have different questions about the game and understanding it better, and so we can bounce it off each other, both in a playing perspective, but then also where do these numbers help us, but also where do they fall short? And I think we have some really fun debates and conversations that I think make us both better at the end of the day.
Oh, 100%.
But do they make Daniel Sprong better? No, just kidding.
Well, they make our information right.
They do.
Yeah, it's all about, using as much information as possible, right? And I don't think it's right. Like, there's a lot of people who have played the game at a high level too, so not everybody's going to see the game the same way that I do. And you could look at a set of numbers and see it completely different than how I look at the set of numbers, but how do we bring that together in its entirety to paint the full picture versus, although I do say this a lot, that I'm always right, but at the end of the day, we got to take as much information to come to that conclusion that I'm always right.
Well, but we find out interesting stuff. We do find out interest, and
Did you hear what he said?
I did.
Okay, you're just
blew
ignoring.
past that.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, okay.
But the people in this room know I have this big, massive spreadsheet that's been built years over years that tracks, and we've added a lot of stuff together, JT and I, just because of questions we've had over the seasons, and we use it now a lot. And we just added a new thing already this year, and we both at the end can go, it won't, and we both can go, well, that is a very interesting thing that we learned.
Well, one final note on Daniel Sprong.
Oh, yeah, Daniel Sprong.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because JT, you were talking about his one-timer from the circle there on the power play, and I will always remember when we first initially acquired Daniel Sprong, him talking about how he spent a lot of time with the Washington Capitals and with one Alex Ovechkin.
Look at
working
that
on
transition.
that shot.
Perfect segue.
Wow.
There we go.
You are a professional.
Lovely. So we're going to talk about a couple of league leads is what I'm calling them. A couple of highlights league-wide that I just think we simply cannot ignore. One of them, of course, Alex Ovechkin on Gretzky's record watch. He has scored 10 goals in 14 games. It took him 45 games last year to reach 10 goals. So at this rate, I believe what I read, the numbers that I read online, it would take him 45 games this season, which he has time to do that, to match Gretzky's record. So Gretzky's record is 894. Ovi, as of today, as of the day we're recording this, is at 863. Very impressive. He clearly wants this, as he should. But what are your guys' predictions? Do you think he's going to do it this year?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think he's motivated. You're close. You see it in striking distance. I think you start adding, too, that players are also feeding him, right? Like, they're trying to get him to that record as well, whether, your line mates, whether empty netter for situations for sure. But I also think, throughout the game, whether it's on the power play, obviously you're trying to find him in his one-timer spot in his office where everyone knows he will be. But I think even just from a subconscious point, that his teammates are looking for him to get the record as well. So I think that, a combination of that where it might be a 2-on-1 where, hey, another year you might have actually shot the puck and this time you might want to slide it over and make sure he gets one more to the tally. So I think he will. I think it's good for the game. I think it's obviously an incredible achievement, for him to even be this close and to even having this conversation. But again, I think it's something that's just inevitable. The guy he knows how to score, right? Yeah. He's been doing it for a long, long time. And obviously it'll be a fun thing to watch if it does happen this year. And if not, you'll look forward to it for next year. But I want to be right again.
Of course.
I mean, I think he does it, and it's more so it's a expansion on what JT was just saying. I think he can do it because of the team around him now. Last year's team wasn't maybe as effective across all areas of the ice. And so that's why his goal totals, to me, his goal totals were down last year more so because of the team
Overall
performance,
play.
not because of his ability to score. So the team,
I don't think anybody is doubting Alex
he can
Ovechkin's
still shoot
ability
the
to
puck.
score.
We know
well,
that.
no, but there were aging curve questions
Yeah.
about like that kind of
For
thing.
sure.
So for me, with the team playing like they are right now, if that can keep up, I think he does do it. And I think it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be cool to see if this can have a kind of ripple effect outside of the hockey world, because this is a kind of storyline. Like I feel like even, football players know who Wayne Gretzky is and things like this.
And Alex
So,
Ovechkin. I mean,
I maybe some.
really?
I don't know if he's as wide. Like I think it'd be a good
Well,
opportunity.
he's not Wayne Gretzky, but I
Right.
would think, I feel like people who aren't diehard hockey fans still know who Sidney Crosby is, Alex
sure.
Ovechkin is, and Connor McDavid is.
For sure.
And obviously Gretzky,
For sure.
I would think. JT, you're not sure
Yeah,
about
no,
that?
I'd agree.
Okay, well,
I know who they all are.
Thank you, JT.
great. I'm
That's
so glad.
helpful.
So glad you know
Good
who
job.
they are.
I'm glad you got this job.
Thank
Was
God.
that your resume?
Thank God.
I know these 3 players.
Excellent. Great work. Thank you for your insight as always.
Bell was on there for sure. It was toward the bottom of the page though.
Folks, just so you know, we have a running joke amongst our broadcast crew with the phrase "Thank you for your insight as always." So if you hear that being dropped, that's what that's all about. So one more big league lead. I just think we have to acknowledge the Winnipeg Jets and
They've taken off.
Wow. Boo!
I'm with
Tomato.
I'm gonna edit in the sound of a jet flying right there, just to
tried.
really hammer that
I
home.
succeeded. That was funny.
Grant, can you also edit in the sound of me throwing tomatoes at Allison?
Yeah,
Just
maybe some
squashing?
booing. Yes.
The effort was there. You've been waiting for that one. I know it.
Yeah. Through 16 games, they've only lost 1 game.
That
they
seems
lost
good.
1 game to the Toronto Maple Leafs. What's in the water in Winnipeg?
I don't know.
Okay, well, thank you for your insight as always. Allison.
I mean, I think JT and I were debating this before we started recording. I think that they have done what they're supposed to do, and that their schedule gave them a nice ramp up to the season, and they have taken advantage of those games and built up a beautiful set of points. They have a lot of weapons, but I mean, Connor Hellebuck is just, I mean, he is a game deciding goaltender, and he has been so on his game. And that one game that they lost versus Toronto, he was not. And so I think this is, in a league where goaltending it's harder and harder to perform, because right now the shooting is getting so much more effective. I think that to pay attention to him, that's a special player that everyone should be. And again, there's Kyle Connor, there's Mark Scheifele,
Right.
there's so many weapons there. I'm not dismissing them, but to me, Connor Hellebuck is the main story, and I love watching it. He's a great guy, and he's obviously a phenomenal player.
And the hunger and heart that he has when you listen to interviews
Yes.
with him, like how
Yes.
much he genuinely wants to win for the city of Winnipeg.
Yes.
And his response in interviews when they've asked him, like, these poking, prodding questions about, what if the NHL took the Jets away, moved him again? Like, he's like, I'm not on my watch,
Right.
not on my performance.
Because this is a team that a couple of years ago was like,
Yeah.
are all of our marquee players going to leave? And he was one of 2 that said, I will stay here and sign a long-term deal.
And I mean, obviously they have a great team, and the goaltending is probably the number one side of it. Obviously, you mentioned Connor as well and Scheifele, but you also got to remember they have a very, very good third line as well too, to be able to get that balance, and they can play against anybody's top lines. You look at Nino Niederreiter, you look at Mason Appleton, who was here, and then also Lowry as well, and being able to see those 3 and how they play the game. Their chemistry has been pretty good so far this year too. So you need to have balanced scoring. Can't just come from just Connor or just, from Scheifele as well. You have to find other ways to get scoring and to get good play, and they've done that. They've found a way to maximize all 4 lines.
Good job.
Yep. Some defensemen as well. Getting scoring from the back end
Yep.
is a huge part of that as well. You have some players that can really skate. So they're a team that skates very well. They have a team that checks very well, and that looks like they've bought completely in. And obviously, like you said, you play who's in front of you. You can't control how your schedule is, right? Whoever you're playing, do you have more time off right now? And maybe later you're going to have less time off. But at the end of the day, you also got to get a little lucky too, right? There's going to be games where maybe they didn't have their best, but they still found a way to win. And that is another part where you got to do that a couple times throughout the year, where you don't have your best stuff, sneak away a win, and you keep doing that over time and you play the right way, which they have. again, it's not every time you're going to go that many games and have only one loss. But at the end of the day, they're a tough team, and it'd be interesting to see how it goes through.
Well, the Kraken almost handed them their first loss. They took them to overtime. The Kraken got a point out of that.
Kraken played well, yeah. And the Jets are just fun to watch right now, too.
Yeah, and it's a good story.
Is this sustainable, though? I mean, how much of this is because of their strength of schedule? Or, do we see them, first in the league at the end of the year based on how they've been playing so far? Or are the wheels going to fall off based on what their schedule looks like coming up?
Look, I don't think that the wheels are going to fall off. I think they're a very good team. I think obviously you look at the players that they have, they're coached well as well. But are they going to continue to sit here and be for every 16 games, win 15? I don't think so. That would be pretty impressive if they were able to.
It's already impressive to do what they've done.
The rest of the way every 16 games.
If they dropped three in a row right now, it would still be an impressive beginning season campaign.
What would that be? How many losses would that be for an entire season?
Which?
If they stayed on this exact same path and did 16. So what is 82 divided by 16?
Wait, they
play 16 games.
They've lost one in 16.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, hold on.
I want to figure out how. I'm not good at math. 5.125. So they're going to have 6 losses on the year? No.
Well, I had to give you both extremes and see where you've found yourself in the middle there. So
again, they're going to be a very good team. I don't see falling off the rails as a option and going the other way and now losing 15 out of 16 and being a 500 hockey club. I guess anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
It depends. You always have to contemplate staying healthy.
You got to stay healthy.
Yeah. Yep.
But I don't. Is it sustainable? Absolutely not. I don't see that now that I know the numbers. And we thank you, Piper, for Minnesota Duluth was not a math school, so
neither is St. Cloud State. So
fair enough. But no, they're a good team. I think you got to give them their credit and for the way that they've been playing and however it shakes out down the rest of the road. But again, I think it would be shocking to see them just all of a sudden fall off and become, a team where you're not even talking about them come the end of the year.
Yeah, for sure. And it's going to come down to, listen, getting the President's Trophy isn't exactly a sign of guaranteed playoff success. So I think that for me, it's looking at the process. And I think everything that we've just been talking about is what's going to matter is if they can continue to play the right way, execute, stay healthy.
Y'all pay too much attention to that.
To what?
Curses and not being able to win the President. Man, just go
Who's
out
y'all?
there and win.
It's not a curse. I'm saying that my point.
Said it's not been good. I would win
just-
it
But
every single time if it was me.
Okay.
If I could, I would.
The direct line comment I'm trying to make, JT.
You're not cheating. You're not trying.
Is that just because you have the most points does not mean you're the best team is the point I'm trying to make. That is my point. It has nothing to do with luck or cursing or any of this.
According to the rule book, it would say you were the best team during the year.
Okay.
You had the most points.
That is not in the rule book.
It's in my rule book.
Here we go.
Which we learned was very influential in the Kraken Super Skills Showcase, JT's rulebook.
it's a fluid document.
Yeah, like Stephen A. likes to talk about his list.
Geez.
It's fluid, okay?
Oh yeah. JT.
My
and
rule book
Stephen
is
A,
always fluid.
the same exact kind of media personalities, JT Brown and Stephen A. So
I like to debate, okay?
Oh,
that's
know.
why you're here.
We're aware.
That's why you're here. All right, completely changing gears, you guys. Since we're talking a little bit about league-wide, I figured we would mention a league-wide initiative in the month of November. It is the NHL's annual Hockey Fights Cancer campaign. They've raised over $36 million since its inception to support cancer patients and their families. And the Kraken's Hockey Fights Cancer game is coming up on November 20th. So depending on when you are listening to this, it's November 20th, Wednesday. It's versus the Nashville Predators, and there is a beanie giveaway. And it's also Healthcare Worker Appreciation Night as well. So part of why I wanted to have Alison on for this episode is because it is our last episode that really gets to run the entire month of November during Hockey Fights Cancer Month. And Alison, because we are close, I know that you have had a lot of things going on in your personal life that you've been very private about, but that you said that you would be willing to kind of share and open up about with, our audience here on the podcast. So behind the scenes for at least the last 3 years, you can tell me your mom has been battling cancer and you've been spending a lot of time going back to Columbus and taking care of her. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about why, like your story and your mom's story, and why this initiative is important to you.
Yeah. So, first and foremost, I think it's important to say that my story is not the only singular story. There are so many of us who have loved ones, be they related to us or not, who face a version of this disease, and we all get it. And this is, again, the uniqueness of it is not mine. It is a community of us together. But back in 99, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. My grandmother had passed away from breast cancer. So yay me. But she made a full recovery there. She was able to be part of a clinical trial, and we thought we were good. And then going into year 2 out here, I was literally, so year 1, people may remember I was going back and forth, doing kind of half of the games. And we were literally getting ready to start our move out here, and she got her second diagnosis. And interestingly, and again, those of us who've been touched by this, we know this, that doesn't mean it was the same cancer. Unfortunately, it was another version of breast cancer, one of the most dangerous. So we've been going through treatment there and just loving on her, and it's been a struggle and it's been a challenge. And I think that when we talk about Hockey Fights Cancer, when the first time my mom had breast cancer, we started to get really involved in the cancer community. I was race chair for Race for the Cure for a while, and I think that when we have nights like Hockey Fights Cancer, I think it's important to remember that it can be so many things, and there's no wrong answer, and it can be valuable for someone to finally make it out of the house after going through a treatment. It can be valuable to be among a community of fellow people who are dealing with this disease or who've lost someone to this disease. And sometimes it's just a night to get out and not have to think about this disease. And so, my mom still is in a state where she's had some complications as a result, and so she hasn't yet been able to travel. She still hasn't been out here. Every year we're like, oh, you'll come out. And so that's a goal that we have on our life kind of bucket list. But shout out to my husband, Steven, who's tremendously supportive and also does a lot of heavy lifting when I can't be back for treatments or surgeries or things like that. But I think it's just, there are so many people who have so much that they're dealing with in this world. And we in hockey, we in sport are here to provide entertainment and here to provide support.
An escape.
Absolutely. And I think if you are dealing with this, or if someone you love is dealing with this, know that this is a time that we want to give you a space to process this, whatever that means to you. And there are people who understand, and we love you. And however you make it through this journey, just know that you are seen.
Well, Alison, thank you for being willing to be vulnerable and share that. I know it's not something that you have spoken about much, and I completely understand why, obviously, but there's so much value in stories and in community. That's something that you and I talk about a lot, is when you can find people to just open up about these things with and confide in these things, it makes you feel like you're not alone, because you're not alone. And that's kind of what this, campaign of Hockey Fights Cancer is supposed to be, all about. Our dear friend Edzo battled cancer, survivor. He's still, he's such a vocal advocate as well for, getting tested or screened for various cancers. So I know that he continually has to get a lot of, health testing done and stuff to keep up on his health. He's very also health conscious, which I believe personally is why he likes to come on the broadcast and talk about all the things that he wants to eat that he doesn't want to eat, because I know that his journey from talking with him has made him really focus on like his health at large, not just as it relates to cancer. But
and I want to just quickly on that, I want to say, I've been around cancer for far too long, and I think that it sounds scary. It can be scary, but to echo what Edzo talks about, and I even look at Dakota Joshua, who's with the Vancouver Canucks, who just came out with his testicular cancer diagnosis. Please, 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 my friends, do not let your fear of a diagnosis prevent you from seeking out preventative, proactive care. We have made, again, I've been around this disease for 20 plus years now, and if it weren't for the advances in the disease in 20 years, my mom's process this time would have gone far worse, far, far worse. And with it being in my family and my expectation that I will probably deal with this disease sometime, I am optimistic that it will be something that I deal with because there are advances to treat these cancers. So the earlier we can find them, the more effective these treatments are. I know it can be scary. Take a friend, find someone. I will help you find someone, but please, whatever part of your body you are concerned about, please go get things checked out. You must. There's too many people who love each of you listening to take yourself away from us.
I think that's a very important message, and I want to say thank you for sharing, not only with us here, but with the fans as well. And obviously, I think that it is going to have an impact on someone somewhere, wherever they are out there listening to that, and hopefully, your words would definitely help them.
And to anybody out there, if you have a loved one, if you yourself are, working through this, Allison, your mom, all of the prayers, the good vibes, the positive energy from our entire crew here. Sorry to speak for everyone at this table, but I think that is safe to say, as well as the entire Kraken Hockey Network. So we're thinking of you and championing you and your family. So Hockey Fights Cancer Night, the Kraken's game, November 20th, the Nashville Predators. Hopefully we will see you all there in purple, lavender, I believe.
I think we allow any version of purple.
Purple.
Or if there's a color that you associate with the battle that's closest to you, please.
Absolutely.
Again, this is a time for you to be however you need to be.
Absolutely. There's a couple of other Kraken Common Thread nights that are coming up, too, that we thought we would throw out there. Most notably coming up is Indigenous Peoples Night. That is December 10th against the Florida Panthers. So we do expect to have some great programming on the Kraken Hockey Network, highlighting one Brandon Montour. He is of Indigenous descent. He's very proud of that, and it's against the Florida Panthers, so his former team. So I think
the narratives
are there. And a couple of fun giveaways that are coming up as well. The Bowie Bobblehead Night is on November 27th, so that is the bobblehead that I am interested in, as I have said previously. Oliver Bjorkstrand Bobblehead Night is December 30th. I also like that one because they have him, if you have not seen it, he is like in a maestro position, like he is conducting, and you know me, I love music, and I love that whole vibe, so I like that one. And then the Kraken Trapper Hat Night is December 17th. I'm also excited about that one.
This hat is sick.
It is. That hat is incredible. I have this old trapper hat that I have had since I was in middle school that I don't have to wear in Seattle because it's usually not cold enough to need it. I once wore it on a high school football game broadcast on Fox Sports Wisconsin, and Fox called and said that I needed to not wear that hat on air.
How dare.
So I have a bit of a sore spot, and because of that, a love for obnoxious
We will
trapper
all be wearing
hats.
trapper hats on the Kraken Hockey Network.
Maybe we should.
Who's to say no? Who's to say no? Well, I know who says no, but
well, we can ask. I know who we need to ask. We can all wear those hats. JT, I don't want to hear anything from you. If
Just
we're
ask
wearing
for
it,
forgiveness later.
If we're wearing it, you're wearing
Exactly.
as long as we all have it on.
I don't have to be on camera, but I'll wear it too. In solidarity.
Grant, and no one's
I
going
like
to yell
that.
at you if you wear
And
it
it'll
one way or
keep
the
our
other,
ears warm.
so.
JT and I are always cold, so it'll keep our ears warm.
For some reason, it's been hot
has
outside
been,
the
yeah.
locker room this season. I've been like sweating.
The arena
at
was
home.
hot yesterday.
Yeah, I don't know. It used to
It
be
was cold.
No, it was.
well down by the ice, but where I sit, like
We
I'm
have
like in the
lights on
hallway.
us and-
Normally, it's cold. Cold-ish where I sit at home, but this season it's been warm, so I don't know what's going on. But
It's getting hot.
I guess, yeah, I don't need to be bundled up like normal. I usually have like 2 pairs of fuzzy socks on and like long underwear underneath whatever pants
JT and
I'm
I have
wearing.
electric hand warmers. That's not a joke.
Yeah.
That's an actual thing.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you guys are in different positions though, so the environment is different for all of us wherever we are.
True.
So on that note, I think this was a fantastic episode. Thank you so much, you guys, for making time for this in our very busy schedules. The thick of the season, it's hard to find time, but it's also great to be able to connect with you all and have some conversations and share them with the best hockey fans in the National Hockey League. So thank you very much. Any final thoughts before we sign off from the peanut gallery across from me? GT?
I got nothing. No, it was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me on, and Allison, we will have another debate at
Fight
another
later.
time. Yeah,
And
exactly.
I was going to say something nice.
I think we did. No, we were good. This was good.
I
think
always
so.
enjoy our conversations, and I loved spending this time talking with both of you, all 3 of you.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was very nice. That was nice of you to say.
I appreciate your insight as always.
Sometimes it's okay.
It is always.
All right.
I always do.
All right, let's wrap this thing up. Thank you guys very much. And thank you to all of you who are listening out there. If you haven't already, please go on Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. Maybe write us a review. It would be great to see your various thoughts and feedback and all of that. So thank you for listening, and go Kraken.
Signals from the Deep is the official podcast of the Seattle Kraken and a proud part of the Kraken Hockey Network. Hosted by Piper Shaw and produced by me, Grant Beery. Music by Benny Drawbars. Have a question for us? Send an email to signals@seattlekraken.com or call the hotline at 206-279-7810. Your message could be featured on an upcoming episode.